Les935 writes, now that so many companies are debuting even more 3x4 card options, I'd love new ideas for ways to use these on traditional 12x12 layouts. I do some pocket page scrapbooking, but I still love my 12x12. Glitter Girl, can you help Les935 dive into her 3x4 die cuts?
Of course I can. Right now we're spoiled for choice for our different things that come in a 3x4 card. So of course we have the 3x4 cards that come in the Project Life Core Kit. These are from Midnight, but they're all different sets, of course. There are also now lots of different companies offering 3x4 die cut tablets or paper pads to fit right into the page protectors. This one's by Simple Stories. These are two newer ones from Basic Gray. So all sorts of different patterns. The Project Life cards come with rounded corners already, and both the Simple Stories and Basic Gray have square corners. You can always use a corner rounder to go ahead and make them match if you want to mix the two together, or you've just got that little bit of variety. They also come, of course, in cut-apart sheets. This is one from Cardabella's Hello Again collection. So you've got 12 different 3x4 cards there on one 12x12. It's a really affordable way to get into 3x4 cards if you're not quite ready to bring on something big like a core kit, and you can always go for one piece of paper that has 12 cards and give it a whirl. And then I also wanted to show you these two packs because I think this is a brilliant concept, new from Basic Gray. It's called the Waterfall Pack because it has all these different little packs of things. But it's sort of like an all-you-need type setup for keeping an album with divided page protectors, except you would just need the album with the page protectors. So you're getting a little packet of all different die cut shapes, then a packet of 3x4 cards, a packet of 4x6 cards, a packet of labels in colors that match everything else that's in there, so nice and versatile shapes and colors, and then some really small flat alphabet stickers, again in colors that will match, and they include upper and lower case on those stickers. So you get all of that in that pack, and you can do all sorts of things with that, and you could really embellish quite a few pages without having to go to much else in terms of supplies. I think these would make great gifts as well if you've got a friend who is thinking of starting an album, or if you wanted to give Project Life or something similar a whirl, but you weren't sure if it was your thing and you wanted kind of an in-between step. This would be a great way to kind of have that step so you have everything that you need, and you can see if you want to commit to more stuff after you give it a try. So this is the Captur Collection, and this is one that coordinates with their RSVP line, which is quite birthday and party themed. Has lots of cupcakes and birthday cakes and candles and things. So again, little die cuts, 3x4 cards, 4x6 cards, label stickers, and a mini alphabet sticker set. So kind of an interesting little pack there, and you get quite a lot. It'd be great if you're going to a crop and you wanted to work on a few weeks in an album and not have to take a lot of stuff with you. Okay, well, what I'm going to do today is start with one of these 3x4 packs. I'm going to use the one that goes with the Captur Collection, which is travel themed and a bit vintage. It's by Basic Gray, and I'm going to I'm starting with one card from this, and then I'm going to build the rest of my layout around that. So I'm not trying a design where I'm packing in loads and loads of 3x4 cards, but instead just showing you one 3x4 card in a 12x12 design. But for more ideas, I've put together a board on Pinterest with all sorts of different 12x12 layouts made with 3x4 cards. So you can check that out on the page at Two Peas in a Bucket. If you're watching on YouTube, you can click the link right underneath the video. It'll take you over to a page that gives you all the information on the products and also a link to that Pinterest board. I'm going to be using two 4x6 photos today and some papers from the Captur Collection, and also a little bit of paper from Simple Stories. So we'll go ahead and get started on today's layout. Yesterday, my mild-mannered, scruff-looking friend Shamel asked on Instagram, if you get a pack of embellishments and you have one favorite in the pack, do you use it straight away on your first layout, next thing you're going to make, or do you save it for something special? I really, really like this particular packet of 3x4 cards, but I had one particular favorite, and it's definitely the first example for me. I'm going to go ahead and use it straight away on the first layout that I'm going to use those die cuts. Just got them, and it's going to go on the very next page I make. I want to start with a design that I've used plenty of times, the overall basic structure of the page, and then show you how I'm going to use a 3x4 card in that particular design. So I have a sheet of pattern paper for the background that you're just going to see around the edge. This is from the Hello Again Cartabella paper collection, and then some craft cardstock that's cut down just a little bit to give that border around the edge. And the craft cardstock is because these photos are going in the album that I have all craft cardstock layouts. So there's got to be craft cardstock somewhere in the mix, and that's where it's going to go. And then a 4x12 strip of a pattern paper. This one is from that new Basic Gray travel collection. And this has not just craft, but also orange, but I really like how it has a lot of the motifs that I've used throughout the album, including the little camera that appears here and there, and some of the other things I've used as well: postage stamps, airplanes, luggage tags, and actual pieces of luggage. So that will work well. And then I have a 6x6, just a 6x6 bit of pattern paper. It's from a Simple Stories paper pad, but I'm going to use it as a wider block, and I'm just going to stretch it so that I don't need to cut into a whole 12x12. You're not going to see that inside edge, so it doesn't matter that it's not cut exactly straight. So this is going to go over to this side and be just wider than the craft cardstock. And then this one's going to go over here, and I need to figure out where everything else is going before I adhere that. It's going to go even here, but I just need to know how wide to make it. So the other elements, I have my two 4x6 photos, and this is the 3x4 card that I want to use. And then I've also brought in a 4x6 card from Simple Stories that's just going to go on the layer underneath, and that's because I wanted something that would include the orange but brighten it up a little bit so that I had some white rather than just all of the craft. And if it's all craft patterns, sometimes it can get a little muddy and weighted, so I wanted something that had a nice crisp white, so that bold polka dot works really well. I am going to go ahead and cover up this cute little circle here because my 3x4 card is going to go right about there. So I'll get this lined up where the orange is nicely framed against the red, using those two edges there to make that nice and balanced. And then I can place this here to see where my photos are going to go. Now, I think I'm not going to bring it quite so far down, but just so that each of these is at a slightly different level. And I think maybe a little bit nicer if I bring it just below there so that I'm not getting that tiny bit of orange from the pattern. If I put it in the gap there, it's a little bit nicer. And then the photos are going to go next to that. So they're going to go right about here, which means now I can figure out how far across the page I want this red pattern paper to go. I do actually have enough room there that I can pull it all the way across and have it be even on this side with how it's positioned on this side. And I'll just grab my ruler at the top to line this up, or what I honestly do is that I don't use the ruler, I just use something that has a straight edge like a branding strip and put it flat against here, and then I can see exactly where it needs to line up on the other side. Then I'm ready to put the photos in the middle. Now I'm actually going to be putting this card on pop dots, so that's why I haven't adhered it, and I'm kind of moving things around to adhere all the flat layers to the page so that then I can attach that one with some pop dots and give it a bit of dimension. So let me get that in the right spot, and then I can start adding these by just lining it up with the edge. So this is that format that I've used several times where I use 2 4x6 photos. Sometimes I work with the whole 3, but in this particular layout I normally do 2. 1 4x12 strip here, the 2 layers of the background, and then a band that's going to go on the horizontal, and it can be all sorts of different sizes. This band could be narrow instead of wide, doesn't really matter. But then I have this space that's blocked out here where I can bring in some embellishment that's really detailed in a small space. So I picked this card because I love how this gives me an area for embellishment. I know that this card looks like it would be a great place for journaling, but I've actually included other places on the design where I can add writing without any problem. So I'm going to add my journaling elsewhere and use this little box to hold some nice detailed embellishment. 3x4 cards can be a great size for using background stamps, and in this case I want to use a background stamp but just on the white box and not on the rest of the design. So I've added just 4 post-it notes around the edge to cover up all the orange that I don't want to stamp on, so that I can just stamp on top of the white. So pop that just on the desk, and I'm going to use the wood grain background stamp by Alison Kreft for Webster's Pages, which is really similar to the wood grain that used to appear on the Hambly screen prints overlays, and definitely a favorite that I've used a lot of those overlays over the years. So I thought I would get the stamp as well, and now I can include that pattern on all sorts of things. And with the big background stamps like this, I don't tend to put them on a block. I just use a brayer over the top. So ink it like this, and I realize I maybe didn't need to ink the whole thing since I'm only going to cover that little box. But just to make it easier. And then place that on the paper and roll over with a brayer to add the pressure. You can of course also just do it with your hand, or you can use the large block, but I just tend to find that personally I have the best luck with the brayer. So now where I have the post-it notes along the edge, when I peel that back, the stamping will be perfectly contained inside that little box. And then I can start building more on top of that, and I have that nice rich color and pattern in the background of the 3x4 card. So go ahead and get this in place. And I'm going to start building items on top of this, but I did want to adhere this with pop dots. So go ahead and do all my little foam squares and get it in place, and then start adding things on top. I splurged on quite a bit in terms of embellishments from this basic gray collection. So I have a few different things to play with. I have die cuts and badges and stamps that aren't not like rubber stamps, but stamps that are more like small die cuts, brads, and then these, which are tape strips. So it's like having a variety of washi tape patterns that coordinate with the collection, but you don't need a roll in each pattern. You just have a little bit of each one. But it's that same sort of transparent quality as washi tape. I'm starting with a couple die cuts, and these are from that Waterfall Pack. So I have this camera because I've been using camera motifs throughout this album, so I automatically wanted to include that. And then I also like this little departure ticket type card. And with a card with this design, I have a couple different options. And quite often we'll use 3x4 cards and put them against the photos so that I can then start building things from that line where they add up. So it's almost like adding pieces to a puzzle where you're looking for different items in your embellishment that will fit into the spaces that are created. So I might start building in a direction like this, or maybe the camera is going to go down at the bottom or up here at the top, but this would be the basic idea where you're working on one line and then building everything so that it comes from that line. And then you just fill in the little gaps. Or, in this case, I'm going to look at the design of the card itself, which has this central motif, and then follow it from there. So I'm going to try stacking everything so that it has a central line in common, and that will include the items that are directly above and directly below the card. So by using the pop dots on the card, that makes it nice and easy to tuck some elements underneath. So I can line this up here, and I can also add more pop dots to the pieces that I layer on top, so that when this is centered at the bottom of this box, there's a little bit of dimension between the camera and the card here. Then I can just continue to add more pieces that are going to fill in this space. Now, not everything is going to need to be exactly central. I can put some things off to one side, but then I'll balance it with something to the other side. I think I'll start with tape next, and I'm pretty sure these are not pre-cut. So, nope, I'm wrong. They are pre-cut. So I'll find one that will work. I was thinking this orange stripe here. They are indeed pre-cut. Sorry, pretend I never said that. And I can just follow the lines of the pattern. So there's a little line on the die cut there, and I'll add that on top. And then I can look for other elements that are going to fit. This stamp sheet is perforated so that you can fold it and then tear it apart, just like postage stamps. And there's one with a little globe that I think will work well with the colors. Brings in a bit more yellow. And you get 2 sets of those in the pack, but they are identical designs. And I can just tear all the edges so that I have that nice perforated edge all the way around the whole shape. Then this could be something that would build underneath here. And I can line up the center of the globe, so that's going to be in this central line. And I can look for another bit of tape that would work well with the postage stamp. So perhaps the red and blue stripe is good because that looks a little bit more like airmail tape. And I think rather than go all the way down to the yellow line, better to go that top brown line. And maybe this tape here then can line up with the bottom of the "You Are Here" label. See, so everything it's trying to fit in all these little gaps. That's why it's a little bit like puzzle pieces. And I can just go through the different embellishments and figure out what might fit well in each little spot. So I have a set of these badges. And I could even put a globe over the globe. Actually, I quite like that. Make sure I get things the right direction. Just place it so that I can see the frame of the printed globe on the layer below, but have the dimension of the badge on top. And this is one of those cases where you can just keep filling in more and more detail and stop at the point that fits your particular style. So now my eye really comes up to this spot, and I'd like to find something that would go here in the center. So maybe that's a good place for a brad. And I'll just keep building a few more pieces into any little natural gaps that I find as I add more. Here's all the little pieces all layered up, so I've just kept everything to that central column by adding the badges and brads and a few enamel dots and a bit of twine. Then, as well as having the dimension of things that are at different levels, there's also different texture represented. So there are more things there than just paper, and that helps to add a little bit of variety and great detail. And 3x4 cards are just a great way to start using this sort of embellishment because they block off that part of the page and give you somewhere to build from. Even though you could put it anywhere, it means that by having that card you have a nice anchored spot where you can add all those other elements, and it just kind of gives you that good starting point into building the embellishment and knowing when it's going to get too big and take over. So it's a nice balanced piece that all fits together. Now I can add in my title and my journaling because I have all this space around here, and then I may find that once those two things are in place, there's a little bit of embellishment that I'd like to include something small so that I have a balance to this large bit of embellishment on the other side of the photos. Spelled out my title with the little basic gray letter stickers and some thickers, but now I've found I have a corner here that I can fit in that I can fit something in that same sort of puzzle piece fashion. So another 3x4 card from the same little booklet includes this one, which has the same colors and repeats that globe motif. So this would fit really well in this corner, and I'll end up covering up this piece. So I'm going to cut a little bit of the bit that will be covered away just so that it's easier to work with and so that I can maybe use that a little bit later if it comes in handy. And it does mean that I have to either cut the card down a little bit or pick up the letter stickers and put them over the top. So I'm going to pop it underneath the photo just for now to see, and I think taking the letters up and replacing them over the top will be the easiest thing to do. And I'll just add a little bit more adhesive to those to make sure they stay in place now that I've pulled them up off the layout. Should be able to tuck that underneath there now. And then put the letters back in place. And now I can start building from here. I want to go ahead and include in my journaling. I'll see if this is enough room or if I need to have a little bit of this space as well, and just jot down what I'm going to put on the page before I put it on the layout, because in a case like this, if I started writing here and I ran out of room for everything I wanted to include, then it could go a little bit skew. So I'll just jot it down on another sheet of paper so I have an idea of how much how much room it'll take up on the page. Then I can add a little bit of embellishment or some subtitling up here. Adding a little bit here, I can bring in some things that are the different textures that I used in this side, and that will be enough to just have a tiny little bit over here. It'll pull it all together, and then those two corners plus the journaling here will pull everything around so that your eye goes to the photo in the middle of the page. Fairly nearly finished here with the journaling fitting in this space at the bottom, a little subtitle here, and then I'm just continuing with that same process of wherever there's a gap, find something that will fill that little space. So there was a gap up here where one more postage stamp fit well, there was a little stamp that fit in this spot, a brad to go up here with a little bit more of that tape. So I'm not bringing in different elements, I'm just trying to repeat whatever is already on the page from that initial building block of embellishment. Then with my journaling, repeating just a little bit, but even smaller this time. So just one little bit of tape, a postage stamp, and a badge. And then in looking at the whole thing, there's just one little spot that's bothering me as being a bit open, and it's this little bit here. Now, truthfully, there are lots of different things I could add here. If I wanted to stay really small, I could just bring in some enamel dots and run them either on top of the tape or above the tape here. But what I wanted to do was to repeat the globe one more time, because there's a globe here and here, but there's not a globe in this corner of the page. So I found a stamp from my collection. That's the Amy Tangerine stamp that has a little globe in it, and it's a good size to fit in this spot. However, I do need to make sure that I get my block arranged correctly so that I don't have to worry about running into the dimension of that badge. Now, I'm also going to go ahead and use the Post-it note one more time, because I want this to look like it's meant to frame that tape. So I'm going to stamp it so that it goes slightly over the tape, but I know that the stamping ink will look different on the paper than it does on the tape, so I'm covering up the tape so that it just won't stamp there. And then this will fit nicely in that gap. And I'll have my little globe motif there, but nothing on top of the tape. Having a look at that, and I think I may look at one last little bit, looking at those enamel dots just to see if the color that I used, I only have the large ones left, so I'm not sure Well, I can do 3 in this size, and I think that might line up quite nicely. That's where I'm going to call this finished. I think if you really wanted any other tiny finishing touches, you'd really want something very, very subtle at this point, so maybe some mist in the corners. But really, there's plenty going on, and if anything, I know some of you would not want to add quite this much embellishment, so just a case of finding the perfect stopping point for your style. I hope that you'll check out the other examples of 12 by 12 designs with 3 by 4 cards. And of course, your challenge this week is to use a 3 by 4 card on a 12 by 12 page. You can do it in any style and share with us your tips for using the 3 by 4 card on the full size page. Or if you scrap in another size other than 12 by 12, we'll still let you play along this week. Thanks so much for watching. I can't wait to see what you make.
Join us next week for the continuing adventures of Glitter Girl and the ongoing mystery of the scrapbooker behind the mask at twopsinabucket.com.